In this video, I'm going to kit bash an Inquisitor as an ally for my Imperium armies in Warhammer 40,000 10th edition. I have plans for 10th edition Warhammer 40,000, schemes even. I've already built and painted 2 combat patrols, Death Watch and the Space Marines from Leviathan, and I'm working on Astra Militarum right now. However, the Astra Militarum will eventually get expanded out into a 1,000 point 40k list, not just combat patrol. And then I'll be able to take allies. I love the concept of allies in 40k. I always have. I started in 5th edition, and I think they popped up in 6th or 7th. I was always a big fan. Currently, most of the allies seem to be for Imperium armies, but the ideas that I have for 1,000 point armies are all Imperial armies anyway, so, hooray for me, I guess. When I first realized that I could take some limited allies, either from agents of the Imperium or the, Imperial Knights, I started looking at some datasheets. One of the first datasheets that really caught my eye was the different Inquisitors. I've always been a big fan of Inquisitors, and they got all the big hitters in there. You got Eisenhorn, you got Greyfax, you got Kodiaz, the other ones, right? But they also have like a regular, just bog standard Inquisitor datasheet as well. It's not super customizable, right? I kind of wish it was a bit more, but it does have some sort of fun options. The model that they show on that datasheet is really old and also really not my jam, but I kind of started having some ideas. I knew, when given the chance between the bolt pistol and the combi weapon on that datasheet, you take the combi weapon. I mean, first of all, it's got twice the range, right? It's 24 inches versus 12, and AP -2, right? And it's also just got a bunch of cool abilities, special abilities in there as well, like anti-infantry and all that kind of stuff. It's a no-brainer, right? Now, choosing between whether you want to be a psyker or not, that's a little bit more difficult maybe, but not really. If your Inquisitor isn't a psyker, then you get Blessed Wardings, which I thought gave you and your unit Feel No Pain 5-up, which would be pretty good, right? But as it turns out, it's actually Feel No Pain 5-up against mortal wounds, which is kind of oddly specific, and I don't know that they happen as frequently, so I don't know. I decided to go on the Psyker, which gives me Psychic Shockwave, and a Force Weapon as well, which just kind of makes sense for an Inquisitor, I think. So, since that old Inquisitor model is not what I'm looking for, and it's also a resin model, which is bleh to GW resin, and even beyond that, it's just sold out on the website anyway, I started thinking about kit bashing my own Inquisitor, and I started digging through my shelves and my bits bins. Now, this is the base for my kit bash. He is evidently named Theodore Lasco, I guess, and he's an older kind of Astra Militarum Commissar figure. I think you can still find him online, but this one I found in one of those older Kill Team, like Kill Team 2018, commander boxes. They used to make these little boxes and just put a single figure in there. I've always kind of liked his fancy pants and his robotic right arm, and the pose is kind of epic as well. He's in this kind of weird green plastic for some reason. It had something to do with the Kill Team stuff, right? But that shouldn't matter, I don't think. I don't think it's going to make it any softer plastic than the normal gray stuff. He has a choice between a bolt pistol and a plasma pistol. And as I said, I'm not going to take either. He has a power sword as well in his left hand, but honestly, I kind of don't like it, so I'm going to change it out. Probably. He's a pretty simple build. It shouldn't be too bad. However, I think it'd be a good idea to build most of him before I start kit bashing. Some figures, it doesn't matter which way you do it. Sometimes it's actually easier to keep the parts apart and then put it. But with this guy, I feel like it would probably be best to get him at least kind of half built. So as I've been doing this for a long time, I had lots and lots of sprues to go through, which honestly is pretty nice. Initially, I thought about using like an unhelmeted Space Marine head to replace his head because I didn't want him with the funny hat and all that kind of stuff. And I usually have a lot of them to choose from because I usually don't run unhelmeted Space Marines. Like if they're like, oh, here's your sergeant, you've got an unhelmeted option. I always put the helmet on them. You shouldn't take your helmet off on the battlefield, I don't think. So the unhelmeted heads are usually quite available on my sprues, but they're way too big for his body and they were going to look real weird, so that wasn't going to work. Since I'm working on the Astra Militarum Combat Patrol on Twitch right now, I had Astra Militarum sprues within arm's reach, and I just started checking the unhelmeted heads on those sprues. I eventually settled on this kind of perturbed-looking bald guy. I figured he would probably work best. I very luckily came across this old Stern Guard sprue as I was digging through a bunch of different boxes and such, and I finally found the combat weapon that I wanted to use. It's awfully big for a normal human to wield, but this guy, well, he's got the robotic, right arm, so a comically large gun on my Inquisitor kind of seemed like the right play. As I said, he comes with a power weapon in his left, which would be fine here, rules-wise, but I don't know, there's something about that particular weapon that I just don't like. It's maybe a little too cutlassy or something, right? I'm not sure. I can't quite put my thumb on it, but sometimes when I'm doing a kit bash, there will be things that work fine on the model as is, but I just want to change them for the sake of changing them. So what I want to do is to change it out for this sword here, so I'm going to have to figure out how to make that work, probably some drilling and pinning as well. So I get to building this model, and voila, he's partly built. So that's good. Now I can actually start cutting some of those parts off and replacing them. This combi weapon is going to look crazy and over the top on this Inquisitor, and I am totally okay with that. The gun is prepped. I've kind of cut away at the handle and all that kind of stuff, and now I just need to cut away his plasma pistol without clipping too much of his hand off, hopefully. And then I just really love how goofy this looks. Like, no one should ever mess with a person who fires a gun, one-handed, I might add, that is bigger than their entire torso. You shouldn't give them any guff. Then I stuck on the head and pinned on the sword, which took some drilling and some kind of messing around and whatnot with a little piece of wire. But and here's where he's at. He kind of looks like an angry baby, but he's an Inquisitor. That's par for the course. Now, it's time to get him some accoutrement, if you will, like really sell that he's an Inquisitor and not just an angry baby with an oversized gun. I'm sure he's not overcompensating for anything or whatever, right? So back to the sprues. I think he needs a really big badge of office, you know what I mean? And luckily I just finished a Deathwatch combat patrol and had one of those symbols left over on one of the sprues in that box, the ones with the fancy shoulder pads and all that kind of stuff. I'll either hang this from his belt, or maybe I try to put it on his lapel. I'm not sure yet. I also want to give him a few other pieces, maybe some pouches as well, and then the build will be pretty much finished up. So here he is. He's got a giant gun and a badge, a cool sword, which is better than the regular sword in my opinion, and some pouches for snacks and stuff, and one of those weird scroll things, or maybe they're nunchucks, who can say? I don't know. And he is ready for action, and by action, I mean basing material, priming, and then painting. However, that will come in part 2 of this series, which will be on the channel coming soon. I like how he turned out, I think, and I'm looking forward to painting him once I kind of figure out a color scheme. Are you thinking about making your own Inquisitor as an ally, potentially, for one of your Imperium forces? Is there a better base model to start with, you think? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm not against building several Inquisitors if the mood takes me. They're honestly a lot of fun. If you liked this and are looking forward to the follow-up video where I paint this guy, hit the like button down below and get tiny fireworks. It helps the channel, and it, kind of helps me to decide how soon to do the follow-up video. And if you don't want to miss the follow-up video, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.